everybody. Welcome to our little Christmas cooking experience. I say to you, benvenuti la nostra cena di Natale, which means welcome to our Christmas dinner. This has been a really exciting and intriguing experience that I've had pulling all this together. Linny and I have been working on it for the last 4 or 5 days, and I think she's ready for me to have this out of the kitchen. So what I want to do is I want to talk to you briefly about what we're going to do. This dinner, by the way, is all about remembering Ron and Norma Signorelli. It's Christmas, and every year at the Signorelli house in Roseville, there was such a wonderful experience that they gave to all of us by cooking their traditional and famous Bragiole dinner. By the way, I just learned how to spell it after 25 years. I had been spelling it with a G. By the way, you're going to find out also I have some math problems in the middle of the spelling problems. I sent out a recipe sheet to everybody yesterday, and there's a lot of confusing numbers in there because Sig made his dish for 19 people and I'm trying to write our recipe for 8. So I'm going to send out a new one with a few changes. I've been using my whiteout tape to correct that. Most importantly, this is the secret recipe that Dai helped me find that Ron had written on a Cullinan Creative Group notepad, I think back in 1990. And I've had a lot of different iterations of this particular dish over the years, but I really tried to get back to the fact here that we wanted to create this exactly the way that Ron and Norma made it. Ron had an unbelievable gift of making this dish look so easy. We used to show up, and he was all dressed up with a nice scarf on, like, you know, no sweating, no running around, not stepping a foot in the kitchen. Dai was the one in the kitchen who was running around serving and getting everything prepared, but Sig was the master at planning the dish. Norma oversaw all the entertainment, and she of course made her spectacular tortoni ice cream that we're going to do here today as well. But so for right now, there's 3 things I wanted to do before I move the camera onto the cooking surface and to show you how to prepare this dish. But this particular dish, the Bragiole, the way Ron made it, includes hard-boiled eggs. And hard-boiled eggs are hard to make unless you know what you're doing. And I've been doing a lot of research and trying to figure it out. One of the things that they told me is, first of all, start your hard-boiled eggs from boiling water. So boil your water to make your hard-boiled eggs, and then turn the water down just for a second and put your eggs in one of these kinds of a basket and lightly drop them into the water, then turn the heat back on. Don't put a cover on it. Boil the eggs, and 12 minutes gives you the absolutely perfect hard-boiled egg. But it's also really important for you to know, I was going to show you an ice bath. I don't have it. I already used it. Just get a pan, stainless steel pan like this, put some ice in it and some water. And right after that 12 minutes is up, take those eggs carefully using your tool, drop it in the ice bath, and then the eggs will stop cooking. You'll also notice that the yolks will stay really moist, and they won't have that green edge around them from being overcooked. Secondly, the garlic. Garlic is always such an interesting process for me. I've learned a number of different tricks. By the way, my daughter Jessie taught me this trick, and that is, if you cut the end off of your garlic head like this, and you put those garlic cloves inside of a bowl, and then if you put a stainless steel piece over the top and shake those garlic cloves, this paper that comes with the garlic falls off inside the bowl. So you shake vigorously, the paper just falls off, especially if you've cut the end off of the garlic like I showed you. And then you can take those cloves and get into chopping, and of course it ends up looking like that. You all know me. This is one of my favorite things on the planet. Garlic. Okay, so thank you, Jessie, for that. All of our kids are amazing in the kitchen. Amy throws it down without even looking at a recipe. Kind of makes me nuts. but I love that she does that. Nikki has become an incredible chef in the kitchen. I watch the things that she creates. It's so much fun. Family, it's all about food. Jesse said to me last week, you know, food is love, and that's what this is all about. By the way, Jessie is an amazing cook and food preparational person. She grows her own food. She grows her own vegetables, so we all enjoy seeing that. And last but not least, of course, Richard has taken the food thing to the next level as a professional chef. So I am now learning from him. When he comes over, teaches me what I need to be doing differently and better so that we have the right outcome. So it's all about the preparation and the outcome. One of the other things I was going to say in the prep is the onion. And in my booklet that I'm going to put together for this, I'm going to show you a little trick that I learned watching some of these professional chefs as to how they slice the onion so they get these really nice uniform little pieces. So look in the booklet for that. So I think basically that's all I wanted to start with here. I wanted to tell you that this is how we're going to get started. I'm going to now cut to a scene and I'm going to show you the Bragiole all laid out the way that Uncle Ronnie used to do it, and we'll take the cooking lesson to the next level, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, here we go. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more about how we go about the process of preparing the actual Bragiole. So, what we have here is we have a piece of top round sirloin that you can order from your butcher. You ask them for a scallopini cut, or what is usually about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. And what happens is when you get those pieces of beef, what you do is you take your hammer, put the dimpled side down, and what I would do is I would take a piece of wax paper. Sorry about my hands here. You can see the dimples. You just lay this right over the top of the meat and you give it a good pound so that the juices don't splatter all over your apron. And basically after you've pounded out the beef and you've tenderized it, then you go about the process of assembling the Bragiole the way I've done it here, which is the way that Uncle Ronnie did it. I'm trying to be very authentic about how he did it. He was very meticulous. So what we've got here is we've got 3 slices of provolone. I've got about 4 slices of spicy Italian salami. And then in my case here, I used the sliced hard-boiled eggs. Makes it real nice. Then I just finished it off with a little bit of my chopped parsley, and then a nice sprinkle of the Asiago cheese. By the way, I can't stress enough, when you make this dish, have everything cut and prepped in front of you, just as if you were working in a restaurant on a line. You got to have everything ready, because if you don't have everything prepped and you're in the middle of this, you're going to be all over the kitchen and it becomes very confusing because there's a lot of pieces here. So once you get the hang of this, it's really quite sweet. You just lay everything out, make the assembly, follow the recipe. Haha. Okay, welcome back everybody. Now, this is the part here where we're gonna basically just show you how to make the Bragiole. By the way, speaking about the Bragiole, one of the reasons that this has also been confusing is that Ronnie and I actually called it Bragiole, but then I also used to call it rollatini. Why? Because that was a sort of a slang word that I heard in the restaurant business. And actually the real word in Italy for this is actually called involtini. So just let's get all confused, all right? Anyways, this is Uncle Ronnie's Bragiole, so we're going to stay with that. But this is how you roll it up. It's very simple, okay? And I want to also call your attention to one thing. This is on my Epicurean cutting board, which is a non-porous surface that I love. It's very easily washable. It's impervious to any of the kinds of bacterial things that you find on a regular wooden cutting board. You'll see I have 3 of these in my house, and I love my Epicurean board, so I would strongly recommend. The other thing I did, which I'll show you later, is underneath these I have a nice little rubber foot that I screwed on them, so they're really stable and they're really nice. They don't shake, they don't move. Okay, here we go. This is the Bragiole. So you take your Bragiole like this, really simple. See if I can get this to move. Yeah, okay. And you start like this, very simple. Okay, and you do this. This is going to be, oh my God, this is going to be a beautiful Bragiole. And I was going to say, you know, you can use toothpicks, but toothpicks get lost in the sauce. This is a special size, sort of a wooden skewer that I actually bought at a meat market. And you can find these online as well, but they're beautiful because if you just stab it right through the middle, just like that. Now, all of a sudden, when I start to prepare these for saute, they're very easily handleable, excuse me, and they don't fall apart at all. Some people like to tie twine around them, but that's a lot of work, and you don't want to deal with all that. So go buy yourself a box of those. They're $5, and you'll find that this is the great way to do it. Before I get to the next stage, I also want to say, I just can't stress enough that when you saute the Bragiole, you don't want to overcook them, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the stove. We're going to fire up the stove, and I'm going to show you how to braise these very quickly and get them prepared to go into the sauce. Okay, I'll be right with you. Thank you. Okay friends, here we are. We're on the stove, and I'm lucky enough to show you that I have two beautiful big saute pans, which not everybody has that, but you know, this is a dinner I'm trying to make for 8 people. Not everybody's going to eat 2 Bragiole. In fact, now that I've made them up, they're very large, but you know, it's always nice to have leftovers. But before I get started sauteing, these pans are on warm. I've got them on 6 right now. I put a little olive oil in them. I wanted to show you this. If you don't have one of these, you should go get a nice big tray, because what's going to happen is as soon as we saute and braise the Bragiole, we're going to put them in that tray. And in that tray, they can be set aside. They don't have to go in the oven right away, because then we're going to make the sauce. But what we do in this pan is what is going to be the beginning of the sauce. Molto bene. Okay, here we go. So, I've got the olive oil in the bottom of the pan. Make sure it's fully covered. I've prepped my Bragiole. I've got about 9 of them here in this pan. And again, I'm making 16 of them. So let's just start the process. Put it in there lightly. Sometimes these will stick a little bit. And if they do, you can deglaze it a number of different ways. White wine, red wine. That's the first way that I like to deglaze. Let's make sure this olive oil is being covered. It is nice to have 2 pans, by the way. If you don't, okay, that feels a little hot to me. I'm going to turn that down. I don't want to overcook these Bragiole at all. In fact, as many years as I've been making the Bragiole, I've learned that you don't need to really cook the Bragiole. You need to just sort of braise them lightly so that they brown. But we're not really trying to completely cook them at all, because what we want to do is we want to cook them about 60%. And we want to get them braised enough so that they have a little bit of color, and then we'll put them in the sauce, and then they're going to cook in the oven for about an hour at 225, which is in the recipe. But this is basically what's going on now. And add a little bit of butter. By the way, the recipe calls for 3 sticks. So what I like to do is just, you know, get some butter in the pan, which imparts, you know, a beautiful flavor. And 2 of the sticks ultimately are going to be used for making the sauce. So I use 1 stick basically for the braising process right now. As I look at this pan over here, I wish I had made up a few more Bragiole, but that's all right. Everything's a work in process here. And I'm going to take a little garlic right here, and I'm going to lightly just sprinkle it in the middle of the pan like this. Give it a little sprinkle like that. Uncle Ronnie would stand there like this with the basil, dried basil. It's nice. By the way, on the inside of the Bragiole is fresh parsley, so you got a nice herb there. And one of the other things that I'm sort of trying is a 21 seasoning salute that comes from Trader Joe's that I actually happen to like. It's got everything. It's got a little sage, it's got a little rosemary, it's got a little basil, it's got a little bit of oregano, mostly though just sort of a nice soft accent flavor. It's not a strong flavor. So now I turn these down and you can see that they stop getting crazy, and I'm really happy that they're not super sticking. That makes me very happy because I hate it when they really stick. And you know, the cheese inside is going to start melting and oozing out, but so far right now these are really looking good. Because again, I've learned over the years, you don't want to braise them to the point that you cook them. You just want to brown the outside a little bit and take them off when they're about 70%. Because at that point, you're going to put them in the pan and let them sit for a minute, and then when we make this sauce, we're going to drown them in the sauce. They're going to be immersed in a pan of sauce. Immersed. And that's where they're going to cook. Okay, so thankfully, nothing is sticking. By the way, you can see that I have an electric stove. And one of my goals this year is to find out if I can switch this baby out to gas here at our new place, because I hate electric. God, it just doesn't cook the way I like at all. Okay, let's take this. This is an important thing. A really good set of tongs. Nice rubber grips. It's like a pair of golf clubs, you know. Got a good grip on it. Okay, now what I do is I just lightly flip these over. Ooh, isn't that nice? Look at the color. It's just perfect, okay? And I'm going to lean that in. Ooh, that's perfect. Not too dark. I've noticed that with top round, by the way, it gets tough really quick if you overcook it. So don't overcook it. The other thing is, inside of the Bragiole, we have a lot of, we have a salty salami, and then we have cheese that's got a lot of salt. And my guess is that, you know, I would rather undersalt these a little tiny bit. Don't oversalt them, because if you over-season them, then they become obviously salty, and then that's no fun. Okay, these are really, really good. So I turned it down. I'm running my oven, or my stove here at around 3.5 to 4, which is almost off on the left side here. That's why I hate electric. It's either burning hot or off. But anyways, I turned that down a little too much, so I'm going to put it back up. And it's okay. And by the way, you don't need to watch these cook. I'm going to spare you right now and hold off for just a minute. I do want to show you one thing though. Just don't be afraid to put a little bit more basil. Okay, a little bit more basil. And you know what's a nice idea? Let's take a little cracked black pepper. Nice. A little season. And you know what? I'm going to just very, very small, very small portion. I'm going to take just a tiny bit of kosher salt. Just a tiny bit. Not a lot. Just a little bit. Just to flavor the sauce. Just a touch. We'll put more of the salt and pepper in the real sauce. But for right now, that's it. And I think we got what we need here. Yeah. So I'm going to let that go. And we'll be right back, okay? Stand by. Hello, everybody. Okay, so you can look at these Bragiole and you can see that there's still a little red on it. And that's okay. I've kind of flipped them around as much as I can get them cooked with the sticks that are holding them together. But it's beautiful. It's perfect. You don't want to overcook them, like I said. And as I'm cooking, I can see it bubbling, so I'm going to turn that down a little bit. And I'm going to push it off the heat because I don't want to cook that beautiful juice in there too much. Okay, perfect. These are nice. And of course, with the stove, I can't control it, but I'm doing my best. So but see this, look at this, you guys. See that? A little rare on that side? Leave it that way. Because by the time they're in the sauce and they sit in the sauce for an hour and a half or an hour at 2 1/4, they're going to be perfectly cooked, and that's how I believe that you can keep them tender. Okay? Notice nothing's stuck. That's very unusual. with these pans because these pans are sticky pans, but there's no coating on them. There's no Teflon. There's no Teflon Don here, you know what I mean? Ha ha. Okay, so I'm rotating them over, getting that nice sauce. Now I'm going to shut this one off because I'm going to continue to use that pan. By the way, all the drippings in the bottom of this pan from the braising is what makes the absolutely delicious flavor of the Bragiole sauce that Uncle Ronnie used to make. So you don't want to touch this sauce, you don't want to lose it, you don't want to burn it. You want it to stay intact so that we can use it. So my job here now is to complete the process of braising. So we're going to cut to the next phase. By the way, see that right there? That's just a tiny bit too red. So I'm going to let that stay in there for another minute. We're going to heat back up just for a bit on that one. And we'll be right back, okay? Grazie mille tante. Hi everybody. Okay, so now what you're looking at is the finished Bragiole. I have 2 pans of these I'm making for our dinner, but if you're making 8, it might look something like this, okay? Notice there's some redness left in the Bragiole. We don't want it super dark. And now I'm going to set that tray aside. And what I've got left is I've got the trays where we did the saute in, and everything that's in there is what makes the flavor of this sauce really take off. So you got to be careful not to lose any of it, okay? So I start by putting some parsley in it, and then got some garlic left over. So I'm going to split this equally between the 2 pans, okay? Put that in there, nice, fresh garlic. And there's garlic in there from the previous saute, so it's going to have some nice flavor. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with some black pepper. Like 15 turns. By the way, this is 2 onions split up into half, and actually this might have a little bit more onion than normal because I'm making more than the 8, but basically that's it. So now I'm going to put the butter in the pan and start to let this soften up. Put that in there and distribute that evenly. There we go. And again, I don't want to turn the heat up too high at all. I want it to slowly integrate into the sauce. Okay. We're going to get a nice spatula. Going to get this going. Okay. I'm going to turn the heat up just a hair. I'm on 2. My heat is very low because again I didn't want it to get crazy. And you see all this nice stuff that's on the bottom. It's actually stuck a little bit, and once I get this warmed up a little bit, I'm going to throw some red wine in there, and that will help to deglaze the bottom of the pan and remove some of those chips and start to make the sauce a little bit more manageable. Notice my professional cooking range here. The left side is on 5 and the right side is on 6, and the left side is like it's not even on. Yeah, that's all right. We can deal with it. This is the side where it's either burning hot or it's off, you know. But that's okay. It'll come to life. So you've seen enough of this. I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to come back to you in about 2 minutes when you see this getting nice and liquid like this. Then we're going to deglaze. Then we're going to start adding in the tomato paste and the beef stock and the red wine. Oh yeah. We'll be right back, okay? Okay everybody, you can see the pan on the left is a lot hotter than the one on the right. Why? Because that was on the right and I now moved it to the left because this side is hotter. Anyways, here's the thing I want to show you. See that? There's like a little bit of a crust on the bottom, and that crust is where a lot of the flavor resides. So if you have a nice paddle, like a scraper, like I have here, I might suggest that you get in there lightly. And while you're doing that, take a little bit of your red wine Ooh, here we go. Now that red wine is going to help to deglaze and loosen some of those chips on the bottom. By the way, I wanted to tell you about this red wine. This is called Nero Grande Spumento, and it's a wonderful, wonderful bottle of wine that I buy at Trader Joe's. It's unbelievably affordable. It's under $10 a bottle, and it actually has all of the flavor profile of the Amarone grape wine that I love, which is Rondanelli, Corvina, and Molinari grapes. So it's a Valpolicella from the northern part of Italy that's sun-dried, and oh boy. Now this one here, by the way, if you can see, has almost no burn on the bottom. That's just because that's the way that the other burner was going. The one on the left has a lot darker char on it because it was hotter. I actually prefer the flavor that's going to come out of this just a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm scraping it all off the bottom. Again, if I want to release it, a little bit more red wine, and I'll put equal amounts into there so we have the same flavor profile. It's probably about, you know, maybe, I don't know, 2.5 ounces each, something like that. That's one of the most difficult parts of this whole process for me, is that I generally don't measure a lot of stuff. I cook by eye, but for the purposes of this little tutorial, I'm trying to be a little bit more efficient about telling everybody what we're doing so we can replicate it. Okay, so now you can see what we've got, and by the way, that's a piece of egg that fell out of one of the Bragiole, so I'm going to remove it. Okay, so now we have an equal sort of distribution, and what I'm going to do now is I've got five cans of tomato paste, which I'm going to put 2.5 in each one of these. Okay, so there's one. Okay, everybody, it's starting to look pretty good here. This is basically 2.5. This is 2.5 jars of the tomato paste. And by the way, this is not tomato sauce, so it's not going to behave the same way as sauce. It's very firm, it's very concentrated, and you don't expect it don't expect it to stir. Excuse me, because it won't. Okay, this is pretty thick, and this is why the beef stock really makes a big difference right now. So I'm going to start integrating beef stock equally. I've got, let's see, I've got 48 ounces of beef stock that I'm integrating. And ooh, you can see there's the power fuel is on that one. There we go. Okay, some of it has settled to the bottom. Okay. And again, you know, everything's kind of by eye, so you got to mix it and see what's going on. See what's going on. See when you get the consistency that you want. Ah, that's the consistency that I remember. Right there, starting to get nice. And by the way, this sauce is going to sit on top of your stove and is going to simmer, you know, for maybe half an hour to an hour, and until you think it's really beautiful. And then once you get it to the way that you like it, then you're going to pour it over the top of the braciole, and it's going to sit in the roasting pan in the oven, and it's going to work its way into all the crevices of the braciole. Now notice that that's bubbling, so I'm going to turn that down. This one's not very hot, so keep it going here. And I'm trying to get it even. But again, I think you can't have enough sauce, because the whole thing about braciole is that it's supposed to be submerged in the pan while it's in the oven, so that all the sauce integrates into all the crevices and the folds of the beef, okay? And it's all about the sauce and the way it integrates with the braciole. Okay, so this is starting to look really good. Now when I'm doing the stir, this one feels a little hot. The right side on this particular oven's a little hotter. But as I stir it, it feels a little thick, which is good because I still have some more beef stock left. So I'm going to stir that up, and I'm going to pour that in there. Stir that up, pour that in there. And again, if I want more, if I want more of that beef stock, I can make more very easily, which is why I like to use the Better Than Bouillon, because I don't have to, open another carton or whatever. I just make up another quick one really quickly. In the meantime, I'm also going to blast this with one more hit of wine. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. By the way, these are my measuring cups that I'm not using. But I would project that each one of those pans would have about 3/4 of a cup of red wine. Then I'm going to take some coarse salt and be generous with it for flavor. And then I'm going to put in like maybe a couple of teaspoons of sugar. Maybe these are small teaspoons. They're like almost like half. So let's see. I think one's enough. Because actually, I never knew how much Uncle Ronnie put in. I have no idea. I was never able to really pick that whole season up. But by the way, the spatula doesn't stir it as well as a nice whisk. So get your whisk. And I think you can now get the scene. I won't make you sit here and watch this, but when I turn the camera off, I'm going to keep stirring this. It's very medium to low on temp. I'm not hot. I want it to be kind of low. I don't want to burn anything. I don't want it bubbling. I want it to just really softly get acclimated and have the butter and the olive oil that's in there and the onions merge beautifully, if you will, with the tomato paste. And it's actually it's beautiful. Now notice this side is hotter, so I'm going to try to do this without killing myself. There we go. Switch it. Okay, I'll be right back. Oh yes, now you can see what's going on here. I've been wiping my pans, keeping my pans clear. I got a nice Epicurean paddle here that I love to use. Love that brand. Oh boy. Anyways, keep the side walls clear, and then notice the consistency of the sauce. It's lovely. It's just the way we want it. Another way to know that it's right is if you take your whisk and you stir in the whisk and you pull up in the center, it doesn't all clump up in the, and it doesn't get all clumped up in the middle of your whisk, which means it's just the right consistency. So the only thing that's sticking to the bottom of the whisk basically is the onions that are sitting on the bottom of the pan. Okay, so there's two things I want to do here right now. I wish they had more fresh parsley, but I don't, so I'm going to use dry parsley. Why? Because parsley doesn't have that great a flavor. It's really more of color and visual. Of course, if it's fresh, it tastes good. And I've got plenty of fresh parsley inside the Bragiole, but it's okay. I'm very generous with it because, again, once I stir it and, make it kind of integrate with the sauce, it's just going to add nice color. Little spot of flavor, mostly visual. And, we eat with our eyes. So don't be afraid to make it look beautiful and make it taste great. Do the same thing over here. And again, so you don't have to watch me do that, let's go to this one for a minute. And before I season anymore, I want to give it a taste, okay? So, oh my God. Well, there's enough butter in there to make it taste good. I don't care what you did to it. So it tastes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just give it a little sprinkle. And I think it's got enough sugar. In fact, it tasted quite sweet with only 1 tablespoon. So I put a couple more pinches of salt just to kind of give it a little bite. When I watch Lydia, she puts pretty good, generous helpings of salt in her food, and I think she's a brilliant chef, so I acquiesce. I learn from the best. When I was thinking about what I was doing here and thinking about what Lynn and I are sharing with you tonight, is that this is an experiment. Every night in the kitchen that I cook, yeah, I love to cook, and every night is an experiment, and Linny is she's my test kitchen. She gives me the thumbs up. Linny, how's this smell?
Great.
Okay. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the next step. This has been on the top of the stove for maybe 30, 35, 40 minutes. It's gorgeous. I love it. The consistency is perfect. I've removed all of the stuff off the bottom of the pan that was stuck before. We did that when we deglazed with the red wine. I tasted it. It was really quite tasty to my mouth, so I didn't put any more sugar in. Maybe just a little bit more salt I did. So now we're in the final stages. I'm going to come back to you in a second. I'm going to show you how to finish the dish, and then we're all done, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, here we go. We're ready to do the final stage here now. We've sauteed the braciole. We've made the sauce. I have a nice big pan here that's holding my braciole, and I hope that you have one like this too. If not, you can go to the grocery store and even get one of those temporary foil ones that work real good, and you can throw it out at the end of the time, or else if you have nice pans like this, you can use them, and they're wonderful. You can see what I've done here is I've slightly undercooked the braciole, and on the stove I just showed you I have my two pans. By the way, I have two of these for my family. I'm actually making more than the 8 yield in the recipe, but for today's, just so that we keep it simple, let's look at this as the recipe. And I'm going to take one of the saute pans that has all of the sauce, and I'm going to integrate it. And here's what's going to happen, okay? So this sauce has been on top of the stove for about 25 to 40 minutes, and this is what I'm doing. You see what I'm doing? I'm submerging the braciole in this beautiful sauce, okay? And I don't want to waste any of it, so I'm going to get my spatula, and I'm going to be very, careful about saving every last bit. There's a couple of pieces here. The goal is that this sauce would actually be over the top of the braciole if you can, and it looks like we're going to just make that, which is good, okay? Which is really good. In fact, this is a perfect yield, and I think it looks great. By the way, my oven is set to 275 degrees, and according to Uncle Ronnie's recipe, he says to put this in the oven for about an hour at 275, but I got to tell you, I've done this dish before. Lynn and I have done this with our cooking team, where we've served this to a large group of people, and this will sit in the oven on low, on 170, holding for a very long time. And I'm telling you, the longer it stays at a low temperature and simmers in the sauce, the better it tastes. The other thing is, if you're lucky enough to have a few left over that you can freeze or put in the refrigerator, when you come back to this dish 2 days later, it's like even more unbelievably tasty because it's had time to sit. Okay, so now you can see what I've got here. I don't really think that there's really a great deal more that I would want to do with this, other than to put it in the oven and let it start to integrate into the oven and let it bubble up a little bit at 275. Again, it's not really overcooking it, it's just warming it through, cooking the insides. And again, because we always like a nice appearance, we're going to put a little parsley on the top. If I had some fresh parsley, I think it would be even better. Let's just put a couple more cracks of black pepper. I think it's got enough salt. And that's it for right now. I'm going to put it in the oven, and we're going to come to a close here, okay? Thank you so much. I'll be right with you. Hey everybody. Okay, well, we're ready to go. I wanted to mention that we do want to cover this with foil so that we bring in and retain the heat. We're not tenting this, which means, piling it up above and letting the air in. We want to close this down so that it cooks that braciole the way I had told you before, which is why I undercooked them just a little bit, because now with the heat inside trapped in the sauce, it's going to get nice and warm, and then they'll be fully cooked through, okay? So my oven is on 275, and I'm putting them in there. A couple of things I want to do in closing. I want to say thank you so much for following this. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as Lynn and I and our family has in preparing and putting this together for you. A couple of things. I don't want anyone to feel any pressure, but I did want to tell you that one of the other motivations behind this little expose was my very good friend Mick Sterling and Kate Fierro, who are very good friends of ours and musical partners that have an organization called the 30-Day Foundation that we're a part of, and it's been something that we've been doing. That's actually where the Mangia Intra Italia came from. In my email, you'll see that I noted that if anybody that you know, or any of you that are watching this are in need, that's what the 30 Days Foundation is for. They're there to help. Whether it's, paying your automobile payment for the month or paying your electric bill, whatever it is, the 30 Days Foundation will arrange to take care of that bill and pay that bill directly to the company that you owe the money to. So everybody has difficulties, so don't be afraid to ask for help. The other thing is, if you are also so inclined that you're feeling good and that the Lord has provided for you and you want to share some of that for the spirit of the season, then by all means please feel free to go to the30daysfoundation.org with a hyphen between 30 and days, and feel free to contribute however you would like to. That's totally up to you. Most importantly, this is all about remembering our family and celebrating the season and celebrating Christmas together. Ron and Norma, the years that we had together with them, Lenny's smiling at me over there, we had an enormous amount of fun together. I want to remember them. The words in Italian would be Ricordati sempre, which means always remembered. This is another little thing that we always had, this little bell on our door whenever anybody came into our house. So this is also a Christmas memory that I'd like to close with. So I say to you, Salute, Merry Christmas, Buon Natale, and I hope to see you again on the other side real quickly, okay? Take care. Merry Christmas.